To end on a personal note before we open up to questions from the audience, what have each of you learned in your research that surprised you about Ayn Rand? And at the same time, was there anything you learned in your research that surprised you about you?
You want me to go first? Okay. Well, I can tell you what surprised me about her, and in a pleasant way. I was surprised to see how many grown-up contemporary friends she had. People I'd never really heard about. You know, in the 30s and the 40s, and you know, continuing to the 50s, she had all sorts of wonderful people in her life. And of course, some of them are no longer with us, but they wrote letters, and and they left stories, and you can see what they were like. I mean, people like Maury Riskind, who was the screenwriter for the Marx Brothers, and you know, funny guy, and but also a political ally. And they had, he wrote her a letter in which he said, you know, Ayn Rand, you are a complete fraud. You are not a creative writer at all. I can see that everything that you say about your heroes is plagiarized from Frank. You're just a loving wife. You know, and for someone to tease Ayn Rand like that, you know, you can see that there must have been a good relationship there. Or Ruth Alexander, who said, Ayn and I are jungle sisters. You know, I've been, you know, loving and fighting for her for 20 years. And even people, you know, who were not in the public eye at all. Linda Lindbergh was a buddy from the Wilkie campaign. They knew each other for decades. And, you know, friends of friends and so on. And you know, people actually had fun with her. And people who could tease her, people who could enjoy her, and I really had never heard of any, well, except of their careers as just names, but I didn't realize that they were part of her life, and that was an interesting part of the story. Sort of what surprised me, I realized I didn't answer your question about all the research that I did. That's something that surprised me. I always knew that I had a lot of patience and persistence, but I didn't quite understand how much I would need to look at, because I didn't know how much more of the story hadn't been told. And it's not just what's in the Ayn Rand archives, but there are libraries all over the place. I mean, I've looked in libraries in Paris and London and Boston and Cambridge and good old West Branch, Iowa, and Auburn, Alabama, and yeah, there's interesting materials there. And I've read the books that she read and listened to the music that she liked and tried to see as many of the movies that she saw so that I can fill in her life. And I guess I might have thought, I remember I used to get tired sometimes, but I never get tired of learning about her. So maybe that's something about.
Well, I must say that I'm grateful to these two women, because they have taught me so much about Ayn Rand, and I so much admire their scholarship, and I admire the products. I admire what they've published and what they've written. And so for me, a lot of the joy that I've had in this has been in that, you know, in reading the wonderful things, the originality of concept and idea that other writers have. And I must admit that in terms of Ayn Rand, I've done 5 books. Not one of them was my idea. In each case, I've had that fortunate experience of having a publisher come to me and ask me to write a book. And that was kind of an interesting experience for me. And I've always wondered, you know, why. I don't know. But in each case, they have. So I've been very pleased, because it did. It set me, asking me to write these books, set me on a journey, a wonderful journey, that brought me here tonight.
I'd like also to compliment my fellow panelists. Mimi may have been asked to do it, but she's done a splendid job, really splendid job. I'll never forget a lecture she gave, a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, about the influence of the cinema on Atlas Shrugged. It was just riveting. And Shoshana's research has been a great use to me, as well as her thoughts about the texts of the novels. She's a brilliant explicator of the texts. What have I learned from Ayn Rand? I have learned that I haven't been born to perform duties for other people. I was one of those people who was raised in a Protestant Calvinist church with parents who were just average liberal people. And I I got the impression more and more as I got older that in order to like myself, I had to do a lot of things for a lot of other people. And I was always guilty. Rand has written a beautiful essay, or part of an essay, focusing on earned guilt and unearned guilt. And I love the concept of unearned guilt. I've been filled with it at times. And she's banished that particular kind of guilt from my life. I still help lots of people, but I don't feel that I have to do it in order to get, to permit myself to eat broccoli at night. What surprised me most about her? Her prose surprises me all the time. Her prose is so clever and so sharp and so epigrammatic and so quotable and so much fun to read. So that was surprising.